When you are dehydrated, you can lead to fatigue. It can affect your performance, and you can even have food cravings. Sometimes when you think you're craving something sweet or you want some processed food, you could actually just be dehydrated. So next time, try having a glass of water before reaching for that sugary snack. Welcome to the D8 Training Podcast. Thanks for listening. So today it's a solo episode, just me, Anne-Marie Antic. And today I want to touch on the 5 core areas of health. To me, these are the 5 key areas that I look for in health. They include nutrition, so the food we eat, exercise, movement, sleep, hydration, and mindset. Setting up habits around these 5 areas are what will help you have overall healthy life. I find that these work for me personally, so I'll share them with you. The first one is nutrition, food. So this is what we eat, how we fuel our bodies, and what we put into our bodies is what we get out. So think of a car. If you drive a petrol car, if you put gas in it or diesel, the car isn't going to work as well. And the same goes with our bodies. What we put inside our bodies will help ensure that we run as optimally as possible. And it's not about being perfect. I'm a big believer, if you've heard me speak before, about the 80-20 rule. I do love my chocolates and I do enjoy sweets. And I want to call out that I am no nutritionist or dietitian. I'm just sharing with you my experiences and what works personally for me and has worked for plenty of our clients. So something that I recommend to everyone is protein daily. Protein helps keep you satiated, ensure that you're full. Therefore, you're less likely to binge on processed and sugary foods. Often people have found that just by increasing their protein, they're less likely to binge and they automatically have a bit of weight loss if that's what you're after. So somewhere where I find the easiest way to do this is to evaluate what you're having for breakfast or your first meal of the day if you're fasting. Is there protein? How much? And is there a way to add protein to it? Something that I eat personally is I like my 2 eggs, sometimes boiled, sometimes scrambled, with smoked salmon on the side. What are you having for breakfast? I find when I have my protein for breakfast, I'm less likely to have that craving for something sugary. This is something I find that works really, really well with the kids. So I try to encourage the kids to have eggs for breakfast. They actually even have protein powder sometimes as well. One of their favorites is protein hot chocolate. So they'll get milk, they'll pour half a protein scoop each into the milk and then they'll blend it up. Sometimes they enjoy it cold or other times they'll put it in the microwave, and because they've blended it, it becomes nice and frothy. I have had questions asking, is it safe to give kids protein powder? I'm no expert, consult your doctor. I do it personally for my kids. My thinking with this is they eat lollies, they eat chocolate. There's a lot more ingredients in there that I probably don't even know what they are and could be doing harm to their bodies. Whereas the protein powder we use is a fairly clean protein powder. We use the bulk nutrients one at home. So I think there's about 2 to 3 ingredients. So the whey protein, bit of cocoa, we love choc peanut, that's our absolute favorite, and then a little bit of sweetener added to it. So it's a lot cleaner than some of the other foods that they're eating. So I'm comfortable giving my kids protein powder, and I know lots of other families that have, and they've had great results. Something I have found is when my kids don't have protein for breakfast, they come to about 10 o'clock, they dip, their attention span goes, and they start getting a little bit moodier until I refuel them with food. So having protein, especially if they go to school or they play sports, it's a great way to ensure that they stay full and that's satiated so that they are alert and able to perform at their best. So that's probably my number 1 tip. Add protein as much as possible and potentially start with breakfast if you're not having protein already. Something else that we do at home as well is I'm a big believer in home cooked meals most of the time. And this is something we keep simple. So every night we know what meat we are having. So on Monday nights we have chicken. On Tuesdays it's a type of red meat. Wednesdays chicken again. Thursdays is fish. Fridays is minced meat, Saturdays is barbecue steak, and Sundays tends to be a barbecue again. I am quite consistent in what I'll do. So, for example, on Mondays it will be chicken just cooked in the oven with some mashed potatoes and a salad. Tuesday, actually lately I've been making a really nice stew out of various different types of red meats. It's a Croatian one, grat, and it's delicious. Wednesdays is butter chicken. We're loving that at the moment. Fish on Thursdays is salmon with rice. Fridays we're loving Mexican, and there's so many different ways to do that. Burritos, tacos, nachos, sometimes just a salad with the meat on top. Saturday's barbecue steak, and Nevin does a really good job. He'll put some pumpkin or zucchini on the barbecue as well. Corn, we love the corn, with a few veggies on the side. And then Sunday, as I mentioned, it's at the moment burgers I go to. So I tend to stay consistent week after week with these meals until I get sick of them, or the kids are like, "Mum, we don't want that anymore," and then I'll change them. The reason I do that is they're easy to make. I don't have to think about what to do, experiment with different recipes, and we're always eating a nutritious meal. So that tends to be my little trick that works. Keep it as simple as possible. And then lastly, when it comes to nutrition, my last tip is just removing temptations from the house. So in our house, we have no soft drinks, no chips, biscuits, because when we have it, I tend to eat them, and I can't just stop at one. I'll eat the whole packet if it's there. I love the book Atomic Habits, and where he talks about how to produce good habits and the difference between people who are able to stay disciplined versus people that are not. And the biggest key is removing that temptation. So people who stick with habits versus people who don't is because they remove temptation. And that's probably one of the biggest ones I find for myself personally with sweets is I just remove it away from the house. I know when I go visit my mum, she's got food all over the bench, and then I'll be walking past the bench and there'll be some nuts there. So I'll pick up a nut and I'll put it into my mouth. Or there'll be some strawberries she cut up. I'll eat the strawberries, or if there's chocolate on the bench. And then if it wasn't there, I probably would not have eaten it. That's where I find works really well for me, is just removing the temptation from the house. With food, it's about finding what works for you, creating habits and a lifestyle so that you can easily implement it. And I say keep it simple. So the next one is exercise. I think exercise is important, and getting some movement in daily. I've got my tracker, so I try to hit about 9,000 to 10,000 steps a day. So force myself out of the house to go for that walk, because I do tend to spend a lot of time on the computer. I am a big believer of strength training or some form of resistance training to help build muscles. From the age of 30, we start losing about 2% of muscle per year, and then by the time we get to 60, it doubles. So because we are losing that muscle, if you don't use it, you lose it. Doing strength training helps maintain that. And there's lots of benefits from muscle. One of my favorite, it burns more calories just by having muscles versus not. One of my favorites is after doing strength training, I'm actually burning calories for 24 to 48 hours afterwards. Doing strength training is just a great way to increase that calorie burning, especially if you're looking at losing weight. For me personally, I aim to strength train around 4 times a week, and at least once a week I work on getting my heart rate up. The key with exercise though is to make sure that it works for you. Today we're blessed, we have so many options available to us. We can do classes online in our own home. We can go in person. There's so many different classes out there. There's Zumba, there's strength training, there's boxing classes, step, pump. So find something that works for you. So with all these options, and there's quite a lot of fitness centers around, even just around where we are, I think I can think about 6 different types of fitness centers. So look at what works for you and what you can be consistent with. I remember when my kids were younger, I found it challenging to fit in strength training or actually any form of exercise. I did have a gym at home, but it just wasn't fun training, and then the kids were there running around. I didn't find it relaxing. So I ended up doing a boxing class. I think back to this class, it was not the prettiest. If you had told me in my 20s that I'll be training at this boxing gym, I would have said, no way. It was a sweatbox. However, it worked for me because I could have the kids upstairs and they'll do the Ninja Warrior classes, and then I could be downstairs twice a week doing my boxing classes. And I was able to maintain that movement, and it was a win for everyone. Thankfully, I don't need to go to that gym anymore, but I was grateful that I did because it really helped me in terms of my mindset, staying healthy and feeling good in my body. We know why exercise is important, especially as we get older. I mentioned the muscle earlier. It maintains our strength, our balance, our mobility. It reduces the risk of chronic disease, and it keeps us independent and active for longer. These are little things that we don't even think about. The other day I left my bag in the middle of the floor, and I walked and I tripped over it, and I was able to catch myself, and I didn't have that fall because I've got that strength to do it. Being able to garden, play with your kids or grandkids, that's why we exercise, to stay strong. It's not about the exercise itself, it's about what we're able to do because our bodies are fit and healthy. Next one is sleep. Sleep is important. If you're running on 4 hours of sleep and expecting to feel amazing, you won't. When you sleep 7+ hours of good quality sleep, it helps your body recover. It keeps cravings in check. So it's one of those other ones for weight loss tips. Good sleep means you're less likely to eat and binge, and there's been lots of scientific studies on that as well. And it helps you achieve your goals because you've got the energy to do it. For me personally, I make sure I'm in bed by about 9:30, 10, and then I try to be awake around 6 o'clock. That's a bit of me time before the kids get up and get ready for school. But find what works for you. I used to be a lot earlier riser, so be up at around the 5:30 mark and try to go to bed earlier, but it just didn't align in my schedule. So now I go to bed that little bit later, so I get up that little bit later, and it's working for me. Fourthly, hydration. Water is your ultimate performance enhancer. Our body is made up of about 60% water, so staying hydrated is essential. It helps with energy, focus, digestion, and even fat loss. When you are dehydrated, you can lead to fatigue. It can affect your performance, and you can even have food cravings. Sometimes when you think you're craving something sweet or you want some processed food, you could actually just be dehydrated. So next time, try having a glass of water before reaching for that sugary snack. Personally, something that I do that works for me well is I start my day with about 600 ml of room temperature lemon water. Now in winter, I actually boil the water, so I put half room temperature, half boiled, which I'm really enjoying. I put some lemon in there and salt, and it just wakes me up. I've had about more than a quarter of my water daily intake. It helps my digestion and gives me a boost of vitamin C. When I drink it, I just feel like it cleans out my body, and I'm starting the day feeling clean and fresh. And last one, mindset. And I think mindset's one of the biggest. Recently, I've been listening to Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo. So if you haven't heard of the placebo effect, they'll give some people the actual drug, and then they'll give another group a placebo, so just a sugary pill. And the people in the control group who receive the placebo, they get just as good as results as the ones that have got the actual drugs, which shows that our body can actually heal ourselves. They've done many studies with some of the antidepressant medication that's out there, and the results have shown that the placebo has worked just as good as the actual antidepressant medication. So what does that all come down to? Mindset. So some of the things I do personally for myself, for my mindset, is that I monitor who I'm hanging around with. And one way that I like to think about this is after the encounter, how do I feel? So I think of it myself like a battery. When I was with that person, did they fill my battery up, that I was elevated and felt good? Did they drain my battery and I felt low and lethargic and not as energized? Or were they neutral? And then I'll do that analysis and I'll be like, okay, great, they really filled up my battery, so I want to hang around more with them. whereas if they were really drained my battery. And we're talking about continue on the basis. We all have bad days. We all have times that we need support. But you know those people that just continually drain your battery? I will limit how much time I actually spend with them. When I was back in the workplace working in corporate, I remember one of my colleagues, she seemed to have drama happen to her all the time. I'll ask her how she was. I even stopped asking her because it was guaranteed that she would have some sort of drama. Something happened to her dog, something happened to her horse. The internet went wrong. I felt like everything was always going wrong for her. And every time I was around her and her energy, I just felt drained. So I really was conscious when I did need to work with her. I was like, can this be done by email? Do I really need to be around her? And if I didn't, I would limit that intake. Something else I find that works for me is I journal 2 to 3 times a week. And sometimes I surprise myself with what I write. I'm like, where did that come from? One of my favourite rituals is Saturday mornings. After I drop Chloe off to gymnastics, I go to actually muffin break. I'll order my coffee. I'll sit there and I'll journal for about half an hour, 40 minutes. And that's just me time to get what I need out of my head. What do I want to achieve for the week? Really reflect on what I've done. And then also where I'm going. Another big one for me is listening to inspiring podcasts and audiobooks. And I have this playing as I do things in the background, such as washing dishes, cooking. As I listen to podcasts, they bring me up. They give me ideas. They help me improve and just feel better overall. And probably the biggest one in terms of that helps my mindset is I push myself in the gym. I always say that the weights don't talk back. And it just helps keep me in check. When I was going through a bit of a tough time at work, so this is probably going back 2 to 3 years ago, it was just a really tough time. There was restructures happening at work. Because of the restructures, I was put under different management temporarily, and it just wasn't working. There was that tension in the air, plus COVID. And what I loved about it was I would go out to the gym after work and I'll just take it out on the weights. I will push myself, really exert myself and take that frustration there. I felt bad for the people that I was working out with because I was always like, let's go heavy, let's do one more rep. Whereas really it was just me talking to myself, trying to get it out. And then when I finished the gym, I would come back in and I'm like, okay, I can mum now. I can be with the kids, be present, and it worked really well. There was a study done in England where they found that exercise was actually 2 times more effective for dealing with anxiety, depression, than taking antidepressant pills. So definitely exercise helps heaps with mindset. That are my 5 core areas of health: nutrition, exercise, sleep, hydration, and mindset. Did you learn something? Did you get value? If you did, please share it with someone who might need to hear this message. You might just help them take their health and their fitness to the next level. And if you did like this show, please follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It helps the show grow, helps us reach more people, hopefully making a difference in their life to improve their health and fitness. Until next time, dominate your life.